I came home with a positive pregnancy test, then caught my boyfriend FaceTiming his ex. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the brutal, sickening moment when you realize the person you love is a monster, and then finding the icy resolve to dismantle their entire world. I found out I was pregnant last week, and what happened next tore my life apart, only to rebuild it stronger than ever. Bradley and I had been together for almost 3 years. Kids? He always said he wanted them someday. Even though we weren't trying, I was excited, nervous, to tell him. We'd hit some rough patches lately. He was distant, working late, weird about money. I actually thought a baby might bring us closer. So, on my lunch break, I bought a test, took it in the office bathroom, and there it was. 2 clear lines. Definitely pregnant. I left work early, buzzing with excitement, wanting to surprise him. He works from home on Thursdays. As I pulled into our apartment complex, I saw him through the living room window, laptop open. My heart pounded. I was about to call out, about to burst through that door, when I realized he was on FaceTime. And then I froze. Because on the screen, clear as day, was Tracy, his ex. The one he'd broken up with 4 years ago, the crazy, controlling one he swore he never talked to. They were laughing. My stomach dropped. I just stood there, watching, unable to move. I couldn't hear a word, but their faces, their laughter. Something felt terribly, chillingly wrong. Instead of going inside, I somehow got back into my car and called him, pretending I was still on my way, 20 minutes out. He sounded off, said he was on a work call. So I drove around the block, parked on a side street, and snuck back, positioning myself right under our living room window. I know how insane that sounds, but a primal scream was starting to build inside me. And then I heard it. Bradley, still talking to Tracy. He was telling her how things were getting serious with me, how I was pressuring him about marriage, which, by the way, we discussed once, 6 months ago. Then Tracy said something, and his reply, it just ripped through me. She's so stupid and desperate. She believes everything I say. I'm just using her for her money until you take me back. She's pathetic. Actually thinks we'll get married. They both laughed. 3 years. 3 years of my life. I had been supporting us since he lost his job last year, freelancing, he said. Rent, food, his car, even the vacation to see his parents. I paid for everything. Now I knew why money was so tight. Tracy must have said something else, because Bradley replied, yeah, babe. I know. Just a few more months and I'll have enough saved. She has no idea I've been putting money aside. Thinks I'm broke. I wanted to scream until my throat was raw. I wanted to throw up until there was nothing left inside. 3 years with a parasite, a liar, a man who called me stupid and pathetic behind my back. And I was pregnant with his baby. But somehow I held it together. I walked back to my car, drove around for another 15 minutes, and then came home, pretending absolutely nothing had happened. I smiled. I kissed him. I asked about his day. He lied straight to my face about the work call, complaining about a deadline. I told him I wasn't feeling well, which wasn't a lie. My stomach was churning. I didn't tell him about the baby. That night, he acted completely normal. We ordered takeout. I paid, of course. The next morning, I checked our bank accounts. In the last year, I'd spent over $45,000 supporting us. He'd contributed nothing. Then, while he was in the shower, I checked his phone. Hundreds of messages with Tracy. They'd been planning for him to move back to her city. He was sending her money, my money. I found a secret account with almost $30,000, money he'd told me was for bills or job training. Even worse, there were screenshots of conversations with my friends where he'd pumped them for information about my finances, asking about bonuses or raises. He was studying me, planning how to extract the most value. There were messages about how boring I was in bed, how he couldn't wait to be with Tracy again, how he was only with me for financial security. Intimate photos, too. Photos of them. Every fiber of my being wanted to confront him right then. To scream, to throw his things out the window, to tell him about the baby he'd never meet. But something stopped me. A cold clarity. If I showed my hand now, he'd just leave, take what was left of my money, and run straight back to Tracy. They'd laugh about how stupid I was. Or, even more chilling, he might try to stay for the baby, pretend he was sorry, and then drain me for 18 more years of child support. No, I needed a plan. Bradley thought I was a doormat. He thought he could use me and discard me. He thought I was too stupid to see through his lies. He thought I'd cry and beg him to stay. He had no idea what I was truly capable of. The next 2 days passed in a blur. I moved through our apartment like a ghost, my mind a storm of rage and calculation. Bradley didn't notice a thing. He was too busy texting Tracy, too busy planning their future with my money, the money I worked 60-hour weeks for while he networked on the couch. First, I protected what was left. I opened a new account at a different bank, transferred most of my paycheck, leaving just enough in the joint account to avoid suspicion. Passwords were changed. Notifications for any withdrawals over $100 were set. Then I documented everything. Screenshots of their messages, photos of his secret account statements, even recordings of his calls with Tracy when I pretended to be in the shower. I found receipts for designer purses and jewelry he'd bought her using my credit card while I was buying store-brand cereal. Every time I felt sick or tired, I reminded myself it wasn't just for me anymore. I had someone else to protect. I called my oldest friend, Freya. Didn't tell her everything, just that Bradley and I were having serious problems and I might need a place to stay. She didn't hesitate. "My spare room is yours, whenever," she said. Then my brother, Sam. Protective doesn't even begin to describe him. I knew if I told him everything right away, he'd show up ready to kill Bradley. So I just asked if he could help move some things into storage soon, said we were reorganizing. He agreed to bring his truck that weekend. Bradley started getting suspicious. "Why are you being weird? Why are you distant?" The sheer audacity of this man, who had spent 3 years lying to my face, stealing my money and mocking me to his ex, thinking I was the one acting strange after 2 days. I wanted to laugh in his face. Instead, I blamed work stress and period cramps. He immediately lost interest. My problems only mattered if they affected him. Friday night, I told him I was going out with work friends. He seemed relieved. Probably couldn't wait to FaceTime Tracy without whispering. Instead, I sat in my car in the parking garage, laptop open, using our complex's Wi-Fi to monitor our home security camera. We'd installed it after a break-in next door, and Bradley had conveniently forgotten it existed. 20 minutes after I left, there he was on the couch, phone propped up, laughing with Tracy. I turned up the volume. He was telling her he was worried I suspected something. Her voice, tinny but clear, told him to stick to the plan. 3 more weeks, she said. He'd have my bonus money, and then he could come home to her. My blood boiled. My quarterly bonus, the one I'd worked myself to exhaustion for, the one that would finally pay off my student loans. He was waiting for that. Bradley whined that he missed her, that it was hard pretending with me, that I was so clingy lately. Clingy? I'd barely touched him in months because he was always too tired or stressed about work he wasn't even doing. They talked for over an hour. Plans for trips they'd take with my money. Jokes about how stupid I was. Tracy even suggested he get me to buy him a new laptop before leaving. They laughed so hard. Then, when he wasn't looking, something cold and calculating crossed Tracy's face. A fleeting look that made me wonder if she was playing him too. But it vanished, replaced by the sugary smile she wore for him. I had enough. More than enough. It was time. Saturday morning, I told Bradley I needed to go into the office for a few hours. Instead, I went to see a lawyer. Angelina had helped a coworker through a nasty divorce. She listened without judgment as I explained everything: the theft, the deception, the pregnancy I hadn't disclosed. Angelina said financially, we had a strong case for fraud. The texts proved premeditation. We could potentially recover the money he'd saved. When I asked about the baby, she gently said I wasn't legally obligated to tell him during pregnancy. After birth, he could petition for paternity, but given the circumstances, we could limit his involvement. I nodded, taking notes. We discussed restraining orders, changing locks, removing him from the lease. I paid her retainer from my new account. That afternoon, Sam came over with his truck. Bradley looked confused as we started loading boxes. I chirped, just reorganizing, like I mentioned. These are going into storage to make more space. What Bradley didn't know was that those boxes contained all my important documents, irreplaceable family items, and anything of value that was solely mine. While he watched TV, Sam helped load my grandmother's jewelry, my birth certificate, diplomas, photo albums. Things Bradley couldn't sell or destroy when everything exploded. Sam knew something was wrong. He kept giving me worried looks, but respected that I wasn't ready to talk. As he left, he hugged me tight and whispered, "Whatever it is, you're not alone." I almost broke down then, but I wasn't ready. Sunday morning, I went to brunch with Freya, but actually met with my bank manager. I had proof of Bradley's fraud, messages explicitly stating he was using me for money. The manager flagged my accounts and helped dispute several large transfers Bradley had made, claiming they were for our expenses. When I got home, Bradley was still in bed, phone clutched to his chest. I carefully took it, already knowing his password, my birthday. How thoughtful. There were new messages from Tracy about checking flights, saying once he got my bonus, they could book for the 18th and I'd never know what hit me. I still couldn't believe I hadn't checked the account sooner. Screenshots emailed to myself and Angelina. Phone replaced. On Monday, I called in sick. Waited until Bradley left for his networking event, Coffee with Tracy, according to his location sharing. Then I withdrew $25,000 from our joint savings, not everything. That would alert him immediately, but enough. Transferred it to my new, secure account. When he came home that evening, he was practically glowing. He kept trying to kiss me, be affectionate. It took everything not to scream, not to tell him I knew he'd just spent the afternoon planning our breakup with the woman he truly loved. Instead, I smiled, asked about his day, listened to his elaborate lies about industry contacts and potential job leads. Then I mentioned I had good news. I reminded him how I'd been saving for us to potentially buy a house. His eyes lit up with naked greed. He'd forgotten about those savings, too focused on my upcoming bonus. I continued, I think we're finally in a position to start looking. I've even been pre-approved for a mortgage. Bradley was so excited, he hugged me, probably calculating how much more he could squeeze out of me. He suggested we celebrate. This weekend, I said, somewhere special. He was so thrilled by the potential for more money that he didn't notice me packing a small bag while he showered. Didn't question why I suddenly needed to work late that night. I drove straight to Freya's. And there, in her spare room, I finally broke down. I told her everything, showed her the evidence, watched her face transform from shock to rage to fierce determination. I slept in her spare room that night, phone turned off. Let Bradley worry for once. Let him wonder where I was. A small taste of what was coming. The next morning, I had 6 missed calls and a dozen increasingly frantic texts. I responded with a breezy message about falling asleep at Freya's after a girls' night, apologizing for worrying him. Said I'd be home after work. At the office, I met with my boss, Dave. Explained I was going through something personal and might need flexible hours. Didn't give details, but he must have seen something in my face because he immediately approved and offered additional support. The restaurant reservation was set for Saturday. Bradley spent the week being unusually attentive, bringing me coffee, offering massages, asking about my day. Each gesture made me sicker. Each touch made my skin crawl. But I smiled, played along, let him think his performance was working. Friday night, I packed another bag while he was in the bathroom, more clothes, more essentials. I told him I was donating old things to make room for new furniture when we bought our house. He even helped carry the bags to my car, eager to please the golden goose he thought I still was. That night, I barely slept, knowing what the next day would bring. Bradley snored beside me, his arm thrown possessively across my body. I slipped out, disgusted. Stood in our darkened living room, looking at the life we'd built, the life I'd paid for, while he plotted to leave me. Saturday arrived. The day of reckoning. Bradley spent an hour getting ready, preening in the mirror. I wore a simple black dress and the necklace my mother gave me before she died. Something about having her close today felt important. As we drove to the restaurant, Bradley chatted excitedly about house features he wanted: a home office, a game room, a hot tub. I nodded and smiled, letting him spin his fantasies while mentally checking off final preparations. The restaurant was upscale. Bradley's eyes widened at the menu prices. "Get whatever you want," I told him generously. "Today we celebrate." He ordered the most expensive steak, premium cocktails, appetizers, running up a tab that almost made me laugh. One last meal on my dime. While we waited for dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom. Checked my phone. Everything was in place. I texted Freya, "It's time." I returned to the table, calm and collected. Bradley was typing rapidly on his phone, but quickly put it away when he saw me. Probably telling Tracy about the expensive dinner, the imminent house purchase, laughing at how easy it was to manipulate me. The waiter brought champagne I'd secretly pre-ordered. Bradley raised his glass. To us. To our future. His smile never reached his eyes. I raised my water glass, not bothering to correct his assumption that I wasn't drinking because I was driving. I said softly, "I'd like to make a toast, too." His smile faltered at my tone. "To new beginnings," I said. And to the truth finally coming to light. I reached into my purse, placed my phone on the table, screen up, and played the recording of him and Tracy from the security camera. She's so stupid and desperate. She believes everything I say. I'm just using her for her money until you take me back. I watched his face drain. Confusion, then horror, then pure panic. He realized it was over. All of it. The scam, the lies, the future he'd planned with my money. And for the first time in 3 years, I saw the real Bradley. Bradley's face was a kaleidoscope of emotions: shock, confusion, anger, and finally, a desperate, calculating glint. I could see him running through possible lies, searching for an angle. He started stammering, "Baby, you don't understand the context." I held up my hand, the restaurant's quiet hum continuing around us. "I have hours of recordings, Bradley. Hundreds of screenshots. I know about the money you've been stealing, the secret account, everything." He leaned forward, lowering his voice, trying that manipulative charm. "Baby, it's not what you think. Tracy and I were just joking. She's been trying to get me back, but I told her no." I actually laughed. An icy, bitter laugh. How dare he continue to lie after I'd played his own words back to him? I reminded him about the $30,000 of my money he'd sent her, the expensive bracelet he bought her while telling me we couldn't afford to fix my car, his plans to leave after my bonus. His eyes darted around the restaurant, suddenly worried about who might hear. "Let's go home," he hissed. "We can talk about this like adults." "There's nothing to talk about," I told him, my voice steady. "And it's not your home anymore. As of this morning, you've been removed from the lease. Your things are packed and waiting at Dave's place. His mouth fell open. Our apartment, he protested. My name on the lease. My rent payments. My apartment, I corrected. You were just a guest who overstayed his welcome by about 3 years. He sputtered that I was overreacting to some stupid joke with an ex. I pulled a folder from my purse and slid it across the table. Inside were printouts of his secret account statements, transfer records, screenshots of messages detailing how he'd been using me. He flipped through the pages, growing paler with each one. Then he snapped. You spied on me. That's illegal. I almost laughed again. The irony of the man who stole $45,000 talking about legality. He insisted I never stole anything. You gave me that money, offered to support me. I asked about the lies. About calling me stupid and pathetic. About planning to leave once he'd gotten everything he could. He shrugged, dropping the act completely. People say things they don't mean when they're venting. Everyone does it. I asked if that's what he was doing when he sent her my money, made reservations to her city, bought gifts with my credit card. What do you want? He asked, defeated. Money? An apology. I want you gone, I said simply. From my apartment, my accounts, my life. He asked what if he refused. I slid another document across the table. It was from my lawyer, explaining that if he refused, we'd file fraud charges, the police would get involved, and instead of just leaving, he'd go to jail. He scanned the document, jaw clenching. You wouldn't follow through, he challenged. Try me, I replied. Finally, he said, fine. I'll get my stuff and go, but you're making a huge mistake. We had nothing, I stated, completely devoid of emotion. It was all a lie. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. He tried to explain again, but I cut him off. Your messages did that already, Bradley. Calling me desperate, pathetic, stupid. Using me until Tracy would take you back. He started to say, people say things. Stop, I commanded. It's over. Completely over. His expression hardened. What about my stuff at Dave's? I confirmed everything was there, except what you bought with my money. He protested, that's not fair. I couldn't believe it. Fair? I asked. You want to talk about fair after stealing from me for years? Mocking me behind my back? Planning to abandon me once you'd taken everything? You lost the right to talk about fair. He asked what if he went back to the apartment instead. I explained calmly that the locks were changed, security was informed, his key fob deactivated, and Sam was waiting there, just in case. His face flushed with anger. You had it all planned out, he spat. I learned from the best, I replied, my voice dangerously calm. You spent 3 years planning to use and discard me. I took a week to plan my response. Bradley stood abruptly. This isn't over. It is completely over, I said. Goodbye. He stormed out. I called Sam to warn him Bradley might try coming to the apartment. Sam assured me he and Freya were there. They had my back. I drove home, finding Sam and Freya on the couch with wine. Freya asked how it went, poured me a glass before remembering and apologizing. Sam's eyebrows shot up. I took a deep breath. I'm pregnant, I told them. After a stunned silence, Sam asked if it was Bradley's and if he knew. Yes, it's his, I said. No, he doesn't know. And he might never. Freya immediately promised they were there for me, whatever I decided. We talked through what happened at the restaurant and what might come next. Sam, ever protective, worried Bradley could become dangerous when cornered and insisted on staying the night. Freya stayed too, in my bedroom. While I took the spare room, I just couldn't face the bed I'd shared with Bradley. Around midnight, Bradley started texting. First, anger and threats of lawsuits, then manipulation and apologies, claiming he loved me but was confused and that Tracy pressured him. I forwarded each message to my lawyer without responding. At 2 a.m., he showed up, pounding on the door, yelling my name. Sam spoke through the door, telling him I didn't want to talk and he should leave. Bradley shouted it was his apartment, too. Sam replied, "Not anymore, and you should leave before we call the police." Bradley kept pounding and shouting. Freya had already called 911. By the time officers arrived, Bradley had left, but they took a report, adding another incident to our case for the restraining order documentation. Morning brought dozens more texts from Bradley, cycling back to apologies and explanations. I blocked his number. Sam and Freya helped clean out the last traces of him from the apartment. We found a hidden credit card statement showing more purchases for Tracy, photos of them together from when he claimed to be at job interviews. Around noon, Tracy called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. She said Bradley was telling everyone I was crazy, making up accusations because I was obsessed, trying to ruin his life because he was breaking up with me. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She said she thought I should be prepared. He was very convincing. Something in her tone made me pause. "How would you know that?" I asked. She laughed softly. "Because he did the same to me 4 years ago. Used me for money, cheated, then called me psychotic when I found out." I sat down, confused. What about her FaceTiming with him, planning their future, him sending her my money? She said she was playing him like he played me, but she knew what he was from the start this time. She just wanted her money back that he stole before moving on to me. "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Because he's dangerous when he's cornered," she said simply. "And you just cornered him publicly. He's humiliated. Exposed. Unpredictable." After hanging up, I sat staring at my phone, unsure if she was telling the truth or if this was just another layer of his twisted game. I called my lawyer about the conversation. She advised adding Tracy to the restraining order to create clear boundaries. Sunday passed with more texts from Bradley from new numbers. I forwarded them all without reading beyond the first few words. Monday, I went to work, trying to focus on normal life. Dave checked in, offering support without pushing for details. At lunch, I scheduled a prenatal appointment, making the pregnancy feel more real. The thought of having Bradley's baby still made me nauseous, but I was determined this child would have a parent who loved them unconditionally. After work, I went to Freya's as planned. Sam brought takeout and updates. Bradley had tried accessing our empty joint accounts, showed up at Dave's ranting about suing me, called Sam, alternating between threats and pleas to talk sense into me. My phone rang with an unknown number at 8 p.m. Against my better judgment, I answered. Bradley's slurred voice asked if I thought I was so smart. I calmly said I was hanging up and not to call again. He suddenly shouted that I'd ruined his life, wasted 3 years of his, and called me a controlling. I ended the call, blocked the number, and added it to my documentation. Tuesday brought a certified letter from Bradley's lawyer, demanding equitable distribution of assets and threatening to sue for his investment in the relationship. My lawyer called it laughable, said his lawyer would drop him once they saw our fraud evidence. By Wednesday, Bradley had learned I was at Freya's. He showed up pounding on her door, shouting my name. Freya called the police while I recorded his threats. Officers found him still yelling, intoxicated, and took him in for public intoxication and trespassing. Another incident for our case. Thursday, the temporary restraining order was granted. Bradley couldn't contact me, come near my home or workplace, or access my accounts or property. Sam served the papers, reporting back that Bradley went white with fury, crumpling the documents and throwing them down. Friday, Bradley violated the order by showing up at my office. Security stopped him in the lobby. Dave witnessed everything, offered to testify. Bradley was escorted out, screaming I'd stolen from him, that I was a liar, that everyone would see the truth soon. Monday morning, I woke nauseated from morning sickness. As I sipped ginger tea, My phone buzzed with a text congratulating me on the baby, asking when I planned to tell him. My blood ran cold. I'd only told Freya, Sam, and my doctor. Another text explained. Tracy told him. Said I mentioned it when calling her. Tracy had indeed been playing both sides, feeding him information while pretending to warn me. I forwarded the text to my lawyer without responding. I blocked Tracy. I trusted no one outside my immediate circle. At work, I met with HR, explaining the situation generally: abusive ex, restraining order, workplace safety concerns. They were incredibly supportive, notified security, and offered flexible arrangements. That afternoon, my lawyer called with news. The judge had granted a permanent restraining order and was considering criminal charges for financial fraud based on our documentation. She said it was a good outcome, that I did everything right. That night, I lay in bed, thinking about raising this child alone, explaining their absent father, the potential custody battles. But for the first time in years, I was living authentically. No more subsidizing someone else's dreams while postponing mine. No more accepting scraps of affection while being mocked behind my back. No more being anyone's fool. Bradley thought he'd broken me. Instead, he'd freed me.